Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nicole Witham. I am the statewide coordinator for the WSU Food Systems program. I'm going to be sitting in as the host for today's hub call, sitting in for our lovely director, Miss Laura, or Dr. Laura Lewis. And we have a couple presentations today to walk through. And as always, we'll be opening up for discussion and stories. Really quick, something that we're toying with is trying to select pictures to start each of our hub calls with. And this is one we wanted to share with everyone. This was a beautiful moment last summer in a barley field out in Colfax, Washington at a little event called Baroness Barley Day. We don't actually think, I'm not really sure how it's going to play out yet this year, but we just wanted to start hosting and beginning our day together with a fun memory. So first I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the hub and how it started. As usual, we'll go through some things that we would like you all to do in terms of our needs assessment tool and continuing to share your needs through that weekly. We're also going to just so you all know, our current high need that came in through our needs assessment tool was in the economic impacts area of the survey pertaining to labor for farm and food business support. And then today our special guests that we're going to be hearing more about their farm to food pantry programs and funding for farmers from Clallam and Olympic Peninsula areas. We'll have Clea and Sharah, and maybe even a couple stories, I believe, if Diane Fish from Kitsap might be able to join us, and then again, some time to share. So as you enter our Zoom room, just please make sure you mute yourself. I believe we have everyone muted, so just in case there's any issues, if you hear any background noise, please be sure to mute yourself. Share your information and contact in the chat box. Just introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you located? Or where are you broadcasting from today? And and what you do. So please also use the chat box today for any questions that you may have for any of our presenters or anything you want to make a comment on. Then we can work also to unmute you so you can speak. And then please also share your resources, links, events, anything else that kind of comes up throughout the conversation. Share that in the chat box. We will be kind of grabbing that live and making sure it's posted and added to event calendars and whatnot. So as I said before, I'm the statewide coordinator for the food systems program. So our food systems program grew out of what was once our small farms program. And we really broadened our scope to have a holistic view of the really interconnected thing that is the food system. So you'll see here on the right-hand side are some of our focus areas that we attempt to categorize some of our work within. And many of you today that are joining us or that are even presenting are some of our food systems team members. And our team is a network of folks throughout the entire state. As many of you may know, Extension has an Extension office in every county in the state, and we have a lot of folks within Extension that participate within this group. Today we're coming together as part of our hub. This was a kind of response network action-based model that we were hoping to roll out to provide space for leadership throughout Washington and farm and food system stakeholders to come together and collaborate. As I said before, we're doing our best to collect and just make available as many resources and events as possible right now through our hub, which you can find online at our website. It also includes the needs assessment tool, which I'll be talking a little bit more about. But again, please share your events. Here's some that are coming up for this next week or so. And the needs assessment tool is something that is open for everyone to share throughout their networks and for yourself as well to take. It is weekly, so as you go into your first page of the survey, it will ask you which week you're reporting for. So after that, it's pretty self-explanatory. Please just take a moment to go through. It's fairly quick. And as I said before a little bit, this was what came out as a high need. You'll see here the blue at the bottom part of the screen for food and farm business support. That labor came in as a high need. And before we get to our presenters, I'm wondering if pertaining to that kind of result within our needs assessment, if there's any comments. I'm also attempting to speak and follow the chat box at the same time. So y'all, if there's something that I miss, please raise your hand or say, just even unmute yourself. Anyone in their work or their world hearing about this labor need or have any specific stories or questions about it? Okay.
Hey, Nicole,
well,
this is Abba. I just wanted to jump in and say that I can monitor the chat if that's helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Abba. And let me make you a co-host real quick. There we go. All right. Well, so today we have, after last week's call, we had some really great and interesting conversations about the opportunities with farm to food pantry programs. And so we wanted to bring some of our friends and colleagues from the North Olympic Peninsula, Clallam County zone to talk a little bit about some of the things that they're rolling out. And just so you all know, we also plan to have Nicole Garden from the WSDA Farm to Food Pantry program presenting with us next week with more technical information about how to enroll or get involved in the program. So Clea, Rome, please feel, and Sharah, please feel free to take over here. I'm gonna just stop this so we can see you.
Great, thanks Nicole. Thanks for inviting us to talk about a couple programs, the Farm to Food Pantry program and the North Olympic Peninsula Farmers Fund, which is a much more recent thing that that's been a response to COVID. So I'm the director of WSU Extension in Clallam County out here on the Olympic Peninsula, and with me today is Sharah Truett, who is the Farm to Food Pantry coordinator for Clallam as well. So let's see, this is pretty informal. I don't have, slides or anything like that. And I would encourage anybody to jump in with questions if you have them as we're talking. But I think what I'd like to start off by saying is that I think these programs demonstrate a couple of really key points. First of all, Nicole, how you said, how interconnected the food system is. And I think for all of us who work in multiple areas of the food system, say from production to marketing to working with consumers to waste reduction, it's so gratifying to be able to work in a program area that actually touches multiple parts of this food system and has win-win benefits for multiple parts. So that's what I love about the farm to food pantry concept. And the second point is the Farmers Fund. Really, to me, again, for all of us that work in community food systems and with the concept of sustainability and resiliency, I think it's been both really gratifying and also really poignant during these COVID times to really see how some of our work that we've been working on for in some cases decades, and really laying the foundations of what we hope are resilient systems, to watch them kick into high gear, and to really see the payoff of the relationships that we've created, and again, the foundations of this work just really blossom during these difficult times. So I'll first turn it over to Sharah to talk about the Farm to Food. Hi, Una. The Farm to Food Pantry program.
Hello there, my name is Sharah, and I work out of the WSU Extension Office in Port Angeles, and I coordinate the Farm to Food Pantry program for Clallam County, and this is my third year coordinating that program. And it was a program that was started because of the realization that a lot of the folks that put food onto our tables are also food insecure themselves. A lot of farmers in Washington state and around the country donate a lot of their extra produce to food banks, but often don't get paid for it. So this program was an attempt to pay the farmers and to get fresh, nutritious produce to the food banks. So I think that our office has participated and our county has participated in this program for this is the 5th year. I believe there are 15 hunger relief organizations that participate in this program, and they donate to about 163 food banks in the country. And our particular branch in Clallam County provides produce or helps get produce to 7 different food banks. And last year we had 6 farms that participated in the program, and this year I think we're going to have 8 farms. And it's been a really great program. We really try to make it a program that works well for the food banks, but also works well for the farmers involved. So at the beginning of the season, I usually send out a survey to the different food bank managers that we work with, asking them what kind of produce their food bank clients prefer, because we want to get them stuff that they're going to eat and enjoy and that is culturally appropriate. So we hear things from different food banks like, we don't need any leafy greens because we get a ton of leafy greens from gleaning. But then another food bank will say, gosh, we need leafy greens because a lot of our clients are going through chemotherapy right now. Hi. And would like leafy greens. Hey, do you want to drink some milk? I know. So
Extreme multitasking.
It's okay. So we try to write a contract that's specific for the different food banks, based on what we know those food bank managers would think was important for their clients. We also try to leave a little bit of room for the farmers to use up produce or to give us produce that they have a lot of. Pardon me for just a second. I'll be right back.
Sorry, do you want me to take over? I'm happy to fill in on where you left off.
I love this. You guys, you are just rocking it right now, Sharah. Also, you can also feel free to unshare. We can still hear you if you would like to have a little more privacy in your home as well, if you want to close your screen.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. Yeah, the only thing else that I wanted to say was last year we set up contracts with the farms, and we had about 1,700 pounds of produce that was purchased through those contracts that went to the food banks. And there was about 30 vegetable varieties that the food banks received. And last year we had a total of about $2,800 for the program. That's a combination of grant money and community donation. So it's kind of a smaller program. But this year, in response to the coronavirus, it's going to be about $4,900. We're just waiting on one last community donor to come in. So it's going to be a bigger program this year, which is pretty cool. All right, that's it. Back to you, Clea.
Thank you, Sharah. You're amazing to be able to handle all this. I have my kids safely ensconced in front of a video, so hopefully that'll hold tight for a while. So, so I think Sharah herself actually is a great example of the benefits of the Farm to Food Pantry program, and it kind of in conjunction with that, our gleaning program, because Sharah started in our office as an AmeriCorps Vista with Harvest Against Hunger, well, it was Rotary First Harvest, and now it's Harvest Against Hunger. And so Sharah spent a year being the gleaning coordinator, and through that, was able to really develop close relationships with the food banks, and it became pretty seamless for when the Farm to Food Pantry program came along board to work with a lot of those same partners. I would add that I think one of the key successes of our program has been being able to work with the food banks to develop a price list that's really uniform, and that farmers had a lot of buy-in to in terms of meeting a balance between their wholesale needs and what the food banks can realistically afford to purchase, given that they get a lot of their food through the national networks and Food Lifeline networks and stuff, where they're paying pennies on the pound. So negotiating those prices, Sharah was really successful in working with both sides to come up with a mutually agreeable contract. Another thing that I love about Farm to Food Pantry is Nils, actually, I don't know, Nils, if you're on the call, but Nils, has some great data that he's collected over the years about the propensity for farmers to just donate above and beyond beyond what they are committed to, which makes it, when you look at it overall, it makes it actually a really affordable program. And I don't know if you mentioned this or not, Sharah, forgive me if I'm repeating you, but just the fact that we've seen food banks now commit their own operational budget money to supporting the Farm to Food Pantry program, or excuse me, from purchasing from local farmers, has been so amazing. It really shows that they see the benefits. They see the benefits of providing fresh, locally grown, top quality, nutritious food for their clients, and their clients incredibly appreciate it and are requesting it. And so they in turn have committed some of their own operational dollars to regular contracts with farms, to the tune of, I think we've seen a 300% increase in that activity since the Farm to Food Bank program started. And now to have a couple of long-term contracts with farms that they have initiated on their own from year to year is really amazing. I also love the fact that we really focus on tiny little farms as a way to kind of incubate their farms and really help them practice with wholesaling and in a very low risk situation. So, and we've heard directly also that for some of these farms, that are just starting out, trying to build their businesses, this is, even though the contracts are minuscule, tiny amounts of money, they can really be a lifeline from season to season for farmers. So it's been a real success story. And then, so we had all that work laid out, those foundations built where we have experience contracting with farmers. We have a standing price list. We have relationships now for 5 years of farms and food banks. And that helped us really easily transition during COVID to kind of the next iteration. Because as Sharah said, we typically go out, you know, it's a tiny amount of money that comes to anywhere around $2,000, as Sharah said. And we typically go out to local businesses to ask for donations to match that. And businesses are wonderful and contribute. This year we felt that's not something that we really could legitimately do, you know, when small businesses are just under so much pressure to just survive right now, to solicit them with donations. So in working with our local regional economic development organization, the North Olympic Development Council, the NODC, and the Jefferson Land Trust and the North Olympic Land Trust, which is based in Clallam, we came up with sort of a different iteration where we would go out directly to community members and ask for donations for a similar concept of farm to food pantry, with a little bit of differences, which I'll talk about in a minute. But that allowed us to really, you know, tap into some funds that we wouldn't be able to have otherwise. As I mentioned before, this partnership between these organizations, between WSU Extension, that again had the experience with running a farm to food bank program and the contracting and the price lists and the relationship with farmers, the NODC, which is a nonprofit economic development organization that is an incredibly nimble fiscal sponsor in a way that WSU Extension is not at all, right? We can take donations and we can, thank you, Nicole, that helps. We can take donations and you know, we can manage that a little, but but as anyone who's ever managed money through WSU Extension, you know that it's a slog. So to have a nonprofit come on board next to us, that's, you know, can be really fiscally nimble and stand something up quickly, was really great. And then in addition to that, we have our land trust partners who have a great donor base that they've built up of people who are really invested in seeing farmland preservation, you know, of helping working farms. All that messaging was already, you know, it was a donor base that was receptive to that and understands the messaging and understands the importance of local food. And so this partnership, I think, is really what makes this concept successful on a much larger scale than the farm to food bank program. So we decided to do this. Gosh, I wish I had taken time to look at when the dates were, but I would say it was about a month ago or so, maybe a little longer than a month ago. We're like, hey, remember that time we went up, these same partners went up to Skagit County for a field trip up there just to see what folks were doing up there. And we visited Viva, and we visited, one of the places we visited was the Skagit Community Action Program, which has some really great innovative programming. And it was them who really developed this this concept of forward contracting with farmers, and then the ability to pay that contract over a couple of years. So that's the difference between our Farm to Food Pantry program and the Farmer Fund, is that the Farmer Fund is money upfront to farmers this season that they can use however they want, right? They can use it for infrastructure, for seeds, for paying payroll, whatever. There's no strings on how they want to use it within their farm business. And then they can pay back the loan or the contract with an equivalent donation to the food banks over a period of you know, up to 5 years, I think is what it is. Let me double check on that. I don't want to misstate anything. 3 to 5 years. Yeah, they have an opportunity to pay it back. The loans are really small right now, $1,500 to $5,000. You know, if we get more money, we may be able to increase that amount. We've raised, again, within the month, we've stood up this program and raised $40,000 within our own community, which is just really incredible. And again, I think it goes back to the resiliency of our community food system and the relationships that we have created between these entities that have been longstanding. They're full of trust, so that we have this level of trust and communication where we can be throwing around ideas as different organizations and, you know, working through iterations and trusting in each other and trusting that we're all going after the same goal. And it's just been really wonderful to see it come together in that sense. So that's what I would say about the Farmers Fund. I don't know if there's any questions for either Sharah or I about either of those programs.
Yeah, this is Lisa. Does the NODC, do they do all the servicing of the loans, like the repayment process, or are using a local bank? Or how does the mechanism of paying back those loans work? It's a beautiful model.
Right, yeah. I mean, that remains to be seen, but the loans themselves, we won't, we'll be working with farmers over the next 3 to 5 years to track their donations. And typically the way that works with our Farm to Food Pantry program is they give us receipts. You know, they'll donate to the food bank and there'll be a receipt of what they donated and how much it was worth, and it's signed off on, and that's it.
Perfect.
It's the whole goal of this program is to be really loose and flexible and adaptable for farmers and food banks for that matter. So trying to keep the bureaucracy at a minimum of the complexities involved with both the application for farmers and also the mechanism for paying it back.
It's a beautiful model.
Well, I for sure want to do a huge shout out to the Skagit Community Action Program that came up with this really innovative concept, and they actually used Department of Commerce funding for it. So,
Clea, this is amazing. And one thing that we have been talking about as a WSU Food Systems team, which is how do you kind of capture and galvanize this work that you're doing, you know, and get it out there so that people can know. Just sharing your success, because it seems like that's sort of like the PR piece of all that is like a whole other aspect of it. And I just wondered how you all are approaching that, because it seems like a you know, something that people would be really excited to hear about.
So Abba, are you talking about within our local communities or regionally or on the statewide level? What scale are you talking about? Well, I guess I can answer that by saying we haven't done any larger scale other than this, the opportunity to talk with people around the state, which I really appreciate. And I think that's a perfect example of how this hub can be an amazing resource for people, is exchanging good ideas and what's working and lesson learned. In our local community, you know, again, the North Olympic Land Trust is a PR machine, as is the Jefferson Land Trust. They have it all dialed in. They have their communities that, you know, they know how to go to and target messaging to. We've gotten it out in the local paper and had some really good response. So.
Can I add for me? This is Kellie Henwood. Hi,
Yeah,
Clea. Hi, everybody. I work with Clea in with our small farms program, and I'm going to be sharing. We have an agriculture newsletter listserv that has about 1,000 people on it, both farmers and community members, serving Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap County, 3 counties. And actually, we have a lot of people outside of those counties on it too. But what I'm doing, usually I send out information to farmers related to workshops, resources, job opportunities. But this newsletter I'm dedicating to food system success stories within our program. So that's one way to share out to the community some of these impacts, like you just said, Abba. So thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for chiming in on that, Kelly. Yeah, certainly our newsletter. One thing I want to say about that application is that we let's see, we have to think very carefully about the criteria that we're going to, you know, be able to accept farmers, because what happens if a situation where there's going to be way more applicants than are than we have funding for? How do we rank these applications? So we settled on a very basic criteria based on conversations actually that Kellie and Karen Affeld from the NODC had with the American Farmland Trust and their program that they just did. And they really based it on losses, projected revenue losses from COVID. So we kind of settled on that as a short-term criteria, at least for this first round. I want to say that that potentially may be a little bit problematic, I guess, or maybe limiting is the word I want to say. Limiting because, some farmers don't necessarily know what their losses are. Some farmers may not have direct COVID losses, but could really benefit in this window of opportunity to build their business, so I think that there's a lot of different ways it could be structured that could even be looser in the sense of giving the widest range of farmers the opportunity to participate in a program like this. The second thing I want to say also is that we're working closely. Sharah is working really closely with the food banks to make sure that we have an understanding of the products that they want and need as we go forward with this program as well. So we're not, dumping a whole huge load of rutabagas on them, or something. I mean, sorry to those of you that love rutabaga, but trying to diversify the product that the food banks will get. The Farm to Food Pantry program is not open. The money that comes from the WSDA through Harvest Against Hunger is not able to be used for meat and dairy and eggs. So Sharah, maybe you mentioned that, but that's one advantage of this particular fund is that we can use it for meat and dairy and eggs, products that wouldn't otherwise be applicable. So.
I just wanted to say we had Steve Kreider who was making some comments in the chat. Steve, did you want to add just something to the conversation about Viva and the food box program?
Hi, Steve Kreider here. I didn't want to divert the conversation away from what's going on at out in the Olympic Peninsula. And I was just entering another comment to follow up on what Clea was saying. Again, great ideas spring from everywhere. The program that developed in Skagit with Cole Bitzenberg and the distribution center with that Commerce Department grant, we were originally inspired by the work in Whatcom County and Bellingham Food Bank that really did a lot of pioneering work before us with that direct relationship with farmers and contracting food after experimenting with their own gardens and volunteers and that, and they just realized, it's a lot simpler just to let's let these young growers grow the food and let's just pay them for the food and kind of cut out all this other stuff, and that turned out to be a lot more efficient. The main innovation was repurposing the Department of Commerce grant.
Steve, I think you're on mute now.
Oh, yeah, I think you just muted yourself, Steve.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Old dogs and new tricks here. I'm still learning. So they repurposed the Department of Commerce grant, which wasn't at all geared toward farmers and food. It was about housing, but found a way to get creative with that and used it as a one-off to get a significant amount of funding to create this cash flow that allowed them to contract with farmers who could then pay back this loan with the produce and be compensated at market rates for the food that they grew, that they donated to the food bank, that then paid for the loan that they got from that program. And then we were invited at the TILF Alliance conference in Spokane in 2019 I believe that one, maybe that was fall of 2018. It's a blur. Yeah, it was 2018, the fall of 2018 conference in Spokane. We did a whole presentation on that. So there might be some information that's captured there with the Q&A and the work. So again, back to that question, how do we share these best practices? You know, we try, we do, you know, it happens, you know, bits and pieces over time. And there was a great deal of sharing that took place about that at the TILT conference. And there's no reason why that couldn't be resurrected or brought together with others to help bring this to the attention of others in a way that might be easier to access. And to your question about, I had a whole nother topic that I had going in the chats about the Farmers to Food Bank, Farmers to Families Food Box program, which is impacting food banks greatly. And I would be really interested later on, not to interfere with the flow here, of like what others are seeing, because it's kind of confused.
It looks like Laura Ridenour is following along, and she's she's been popping stuff. So if there are links associated to any of this information for people to follow up on, Laura, would you be so kind to share that in the chat as well?
Yeah, thanks. I can stick that in there.
Feel free to pipe up and share, as well.
Okay. One of the things that I was just in listening to what Clea was saying about the role of the North Olympic Development Council. I think that I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity for us to do some collectivizing of our projects. And I have served on the Farm Fund here for quite some time. And we grew, over the last 5 years, we grew up a microloan project for up to $12,000 as a revolving loan. That's true. ICU is Industrial Credit Union, backed by the Community Food Co-op. And we have been interested in possibilities for replicating this model that we have in other places. And it sounds like that is also happening through the Farmer Fund. So I'm interested in potentially of a small gathering of people who run similar types of funds. We can learn from each other and see if there might be a way for it to be modeled in other communities.
That's great. Thank you, Laura. Clea and Sharah, did you have any kind of closing, anything else that comes to mind, or?
Yeah, I think I just want to emphasize the point of relationships. You know, that we have worked with these different entities for a while, and in Clallam County, actually, we borrowed the model from Jefferson County of the Jefferson County Land Works, which is a group that's been working for many years and has such an amazing track record of success in working with farms and farm businesses. And it's just a really neat collaboration of, Kelly, help me out here if I'm missing a group, but you know, the Land Trust, WSU Extension, the Conservation District, the Co-op, who am I missing? NODC is part of it.
Craft 3.
Craft 3, is a really important partner as well. And I think what's really cool about, so we sort of replicated that model and called ourselves Clallam Ag Works. And I mentioned that we had gone up to Skagit on a field trip to just tour around and see what other folks were doing and gather some good ideas. And I think the thing I love about our Clallam Ag Works group is that it's really informal. We are not a formal organizational structure at all. We're just a group of different entities that work with farmers in different ways, getting together to network and talk once a month. And there's no there's very little structure to it. And I think that in the long run helps us be really nimble and not get bogged down in kind of the organizational details and bureaucracy of managing yet another entity, you know, but helps us come together quickly and leverage resources. So if you don't have groups like that meet regularly in your community, I would say that's a huge benefit to helping build the food system web. That's it for me. Sharah, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to relay a little story. I think that the Farm to Food Pantry program is also, in addition to providing funding to farmers, to small farmers when they need it, usually they get their funding in the springtime, it's a great source of pride to them. We have one farm that has participated in the program the last 5 years, and they told me that they work about 12-hour days, 7 days a week. It's a husband and wife couple. They can never leave the farm together to go on vacation, because one of them always has to be on the farm. And for several years, they've both, I think, been thinking about throwing in the towel. But the last couple of years, we've been sending them thank you cards that we gather from the food bank clients who are so appreciative of the fresh produce. And we sent them a big bundle of these cards at Christmas last year. And the male farmer just broke down in tears because he felt so appreciated. And they're sticking it out another year. They're going to be one of our farms. So it just means a lot to them to know that they're giving food to people who need it and that they're appreciated.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Clea and Sharah, for sharing with us all today, and Steve and Kelly and Laura as well. Is there anyone else that's on the line with us today that has a farm to food bank, or excuse me, farm to food pantry story or something similar that they wanted to share?
Do you want me to jump in here? This is Diane Fish. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes. Thank you, Diane. Hello.
So one of the things that last year was our first year with Farm to Food Pantry, and we're very excited about that. So I applied for and received a couple of extra grants. And so we had, going into the season, we had about $9,000, a bunch of which we were going to dedicate to doing things like purchasing produce crates that we could have as part of the system, to kind of like some infrastructure pieces. And we've kind of been sidetracked a little bit by that this year because the COVID thing. And so we've just focused on contracting. But the relationship that it is, I mean, I had a previously existing relationship with the food pantries, because at Kitsap Conservation District, we have a food bank farm and we grow for one of the food pantries, and then overflow goes to the others. We have 10 food pantries as part of the Kitsap County Food Bank Coalition. And like with Clea, there's a group that meets. And so we're part of that. We've been invited to be part of that group, and building relationships, like she said, has been so crucial. And I think building trust over time, because like many of the food pantries, our program was originally grant funded, and grant funding is soft money, and so you never know if you're going to be there next year. And so really we've been there long enough now that they're beginning to trust us, that we're going to, in my first year working with the Conservation District, I was doing a bunch of outreach, and one of the food banks was like, we're talking about, educating, because they have food bank gardeners that grow for them, and, offering resources and doing workshops with them, and, for their clients. And they're like, well, yeah, we'll take a workshop from you, but really what we want to see is if you're going to be here next year or the year after. And I'm like, okay. So we've really, we've built that relationship, and now have very positive relationships with the food banks, which has been exciting. As a county affiliate of a state agency, we are not a nonprofit. And so for applying for funds, we need some of them to partner with us. And so I have a couple of really great relationships with the food banks that allow us to partner and use their nonprofit status when I do the application and submit it via them. And that has been really great. We have a slightly different relationship in that we're the primary interface with the farmers. The food banks are kind of out of that relationship. And I think that they appreciate that the food just shows up for them. But we're also working to build that relationship a little stronger, because most of the farmers have a food bank that they're close to, and so their ability to donate in that situation builds that relationship and builds community. But I'm really excited about what they're doing with the Farmers Fund. I think that that's so exciting. We have a community, the Kids Up Community Foundation, and I'm like already like the wheels are turning about how I could possibly like use that as a vehicle to do something similar here in Kitsap, just because we have such a desperate need for that. And I think one of the things that the COVID process has done is that it has opened the door to those relationships as people have like really worked hard to partner. So that, the Farm to Food Pantry has been really good for our community this year. And we've been contracting like crazy. The one thing I would say is that with our community money, we do have the flexibility to buy protein. And so that has been good. And we also used a little bit of that money to pay for an AmeriCorps position, which has been very, very helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diane. I wanted to invite Kellie. It sounds like, yeah, I've been hearing about some cool fisheries and processing stories. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Hi, everybody. Kellie Henwood here again out on the Olympic Peninsula. And I just wanted to share a really cool success story that we just got to celebrate this week. For a number of years, WSU Extension and staff at Washington Sea Grant out here has been trying really hard to figure out a fish to food banks or fish to institution capacity increase, either in food banks or schools. And we've just had a lot of hard times being successful at that due to a number of reasons. And one really cool thing that's come out of COVID is, as you may know, some of the fisheries are still closed down. And we just celebrated the delivery of 1,200 pounds of flash frozen cod from Nia Bay to be delivered, or was delivered, to food banks all over Clallam and Jefferson counties the last 2 weeks. So this took many different organizations to make happen. The Nia Bay, the Cape Flattery Fishermen's Co-op in Nia Bay, Washington Sea Grant, they work with fishermen, they were the connection, WSU Extension with our work with food banks and those relationships, OLICAP, the community action programs, and then of course the food bank managers and their on the ground work. And so we are really excited about this because it can hopefully continue. And there's quite a bit of frozen fish still at Nia Bay. So we're trying to figure out, the biggest challenge for us is because we're so geographically isolated and so rural, the transportation can be a sticking point for us. But with the help of OLICAP and some of their transportation ability and warehouse ability, we're hoping that this will increase capacity for that. And also, I don't know who works with tribes, but there's so many complex challenges within tribes sometimes. And so it's really exciting to actually just see it happen, and healthy, lean protein on the plates of food bank patrons. So I'm going to pop a link in the chat of our recent Facebook post that got quite a bit of celebratory comments, and we're just really excited to share this work. So, and I just want to add that wasn't actually from any Farm to Food Pantry funds. The food banks purchased it outright. We just helped make the connection with them. So it's not a part of any official program yet, but I guess that just shows the great role that WSU Extension can play in just helping make connections. Like you were saying, Clea, it's all about relationships, and we rely so heavily on those relationships out here. So thanks. Any questions about that? Diane, it looks like you're muted.
Diane Fish. Oh, she might be talking to someone else.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Kellie. It's always uplifting to hear success stories and all the hard work that goes into making all those connections to come together and things line up. So, and fish is a unique one, and it's highly perishable, and appreciate all that effort that goes into making that happen. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And I should add that they were already filleted and packed up in 50-pound boxes. So it's really just, the sweat equity of getting it from place to place.
It's awesome. Does anyone else have anything they want to share along the lines of farm or fisheries to food pantry stories?
Hi, everyone. It's Naima from Nurturing Roots. I know
Hi,
Hi, I tapped in a little bit late, but good to see everyone. I love the story about the fish going out to food banks. I did have a question whether or not there was a potential to get any to perhaps the Seattle area or Rainier Valley food banks.
Hi, Naima. That's a great question. And I would love to see that happen. I'm not as plugged into that area in terms of partners, and Washington Sea Grant is statewide, but it really was the effort of the Sarah Fiskin, the coordinator who's based out here with those connections. She really was pivotal in making this happen. Yeah, I don't know. Nicole, do you have any?
Well, I was wondering, is Carrie Backman from Waukiacum County on the line perhaps today? There might be an opportunity to work with her. I know that they recently put in a new processing facility there. And geographically, from a distribution standpoint, it might be a better option for making a connection there, Naima. But I'd be happy to, behind the scenes, definitely do some web weaving to see if we can connect you with some fisheries folks. I always turn around and look at my map behind me, like where there's a couple other folks that come to mind. So thanks for putting that question out there. Do you have any other updates for us in terms of your work while you're here?
Sure, and thank you for that answer. I definitely am trying to participate in distributing for multiple farmers in the Seattle area. So Nurturing Roots has taken on collaborating with RBAC. They predominantly did food stands and sourced from local farmers on Rainier Valley. And Clean Greens. We recently lost Miss Lottie. I see Steve there. Good to see you, Steve. But Miss Lottie was the leader of Clean Greens in Seattle. They have a farm out in Duval, and unfortunately she passed a few months ago. So I've been asked to kind of strategize with Clean Greens to work on their distribution. So there'll be a lot of local farmers producing food. We're hoping to still supply to SPS in their summer program. But Nurturing Roots has kind of answered COVID by presenting grow at home boxes. So far we've been able to issue about 180 boxes to individuals from our community, also, spanning out to Auburn, Tacoma, maybe as far north as Shoreline. But we've been giving starts and instructions, seeds, and compost for free, and then delivering it to folks. So really trying to up the participation for folks who are missing the engagement on site. But for those who haven't really heard of Nurturing Roots, we predominantly focus on sustainable agriculture awareness and different education around farming, but just supporting different efforts in the community. So in the city, we're located on Beacon and Graham in Seattle. We have about a 1/4 acre, but really we've been trying to just reorganize a lot of our programming. We're hoping to do a farm to table dinner later on in the season for sure once stuff clears, but we're doing a few movie nights. So our next one will be a drive-in film at our farm space. But that's what we're up to. So I'm glad I was able to tap in because I've missed all the other meetings. Thanks for having us.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about Lottie. She was at the meeting that Chris Iberly sponsored there back in earlier this year?
Yes, she was.
I mean, it seems a lifetime ago, and here it is. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Naima, I was going to share your Facebook page, but do you have a website or any other links or information you'd like me to share in the chat with folks?
Sure. Right now we're just on Facebook, so
Okay.
Nurturing Roots 206. If you share that link, Besides that, we do have a link tree. I can try to find that and share. But if folks are interested, again, it's this area only. I just don't have the distribution arm to get it out too far, but I definitely want to be able to source more boxes. So if you know anyone in the Seattle area that could use some starts, we're for sure getting all our heart crops out. The tomatoes and peppers are coming. So it would be nice to share more boxes.
Excellent. Anyone else want to jump in with some stories or updates?
This is Pat Muntz in Spokane, and our Link Co-op got one of the farm to food pantry contracts and started shipping boxes last week. But they've done a very good job of pivoting to meet the new demand, and you know, they're doing really well over on this end of the world.
Excellent.
This is Nils from Stevens County.
Oh, there's Nels. Hi, Nels.
Hi, sorry I was late. So I missed a lot of this meeting, everything up until now, actually. But I wanted to mention that in our region, for our Farm to Food Pantry program and other programs, the Farm to Community program, it's starting to look now like there is so much demand that our farmers are not going to be able to meet it. So we just keep getting more money donated for produce, and the farmers, it's too late now really to meet that demand to plant new stuff, at least for the better half of the season. We might be able to have our farmers plant more stuff for fall crops, but then we've got storage issues. So we'd have to quickly develop a storage infrastructure. But, you know, we've gone from kind of a famine to feast scenario all of a sudden. Adding to that, Pat mentioned that Link has got a contract for doing the food boxes. There's another organization in Spokane called Share Farm that has one of those contracts, and so they're after the same set of farmers to do 400 boxes a week or something like that. So it's a very unfortunate circumstance where we've been fighting all this time to find money to keep to get our farmers to build capacity, and suddenly we've got a whole bunch of money and the capacity takes time to build, and so we might not be able to take advantage of it. We might have to, you know, push it out a bit or something.
Well, Niels, I'm glad you're on, because it was a few meetings ago when you brought up the situation with the potatoes in Eastern Washington and really kind of brought my attention to this. But this, I got to tell you, this USDA Farmers to Families food box is insane. I mean, it's bringing a lot of money and perhaps food to people, but it's the same players falling all of each other, trying to contact the same growers and trying to push it through the same small pipeline of food banks that don't have the capacity to receive it and don't have the cold storage. And it's very confused, and an incredible amount of food is supposed to get pushed out in 6 weeks. And I'm just curious to what other people are experiencing or seeing on the ground. I put a few notes in the chat, and there's more to say about it. And I'd love to hear from others what they're seeing, because it's quite a strange situation right now. And multiple food banks are being approached by multiple people who got this contract, who don't have those relationships, are now all of a sudden trying to build a relationship with farmers and build a relationship with the food banks and trying to make connections that, you know, really already existed to a certain extent, and just replicating and making a lot of confusion out there. And it's a lot of free food too. So, I mean, a lot of these programs that we've talked about, trying to get money to farmers and pay farmers to grow food and all that, that's kind of a organized and planned and incremental, is kind of getting all blown up from all this free food that's going to come pouring into the system right now. So I'd be really curious what others are seeing or experiencing this first week of this.
Chris Iberly, did you have any kind of summarizations or anything that you've seen in your work? Oh, Diane?
Yeah, sorry, I'm on 2 Zooms right now, and so it got a little dicey there because I was reporting in our staff meeting. We're also seeing, you know, kind of that, like Neil's talked about with the feast or famine and some of that stuff that's going on. And we did a potato giveaway. We bought a truckload of potatoes, and our timing was pretty good on that because we got the 40,000 pounds distributed before all of them started coming through the food boxes. But our food banks are also noting that everybody being very helpful sometimes is not very helpful. And while grocery rescue is down, so some of the fresh produce is down, the fresh food boxes stuff, so they're inundated. But because there's so many people staying home, a lot of their clients who are at risk are not currently able to get to the food pantries. And so we have a partnership with Embark Northwest and a number of the cities where they're actually actively recruiting volunteers to actually like deliver meals, deliver food boxes, so that's something that is working on that last mile distribution. But pushing out all that food is proving challenging for the food banks because they have fewer volunteers, and so they're trying to like refine their systems as well. But it is definitely a different time. Most of the contracting that we're doing right now is for squash for next fall, for delivery next fall.
Yeah, I also have been asking my growers, the ones that have the capacity for it, to focus on fall crops. Because what we're concerned about is there's all this food coming forward now. Our food pantries and the food banks are at capacity in our region. And then actually some of the food pantries have a decreased, they have a decreased number of people coming. And then I think that's all going to crash in the fall. I'm worried it's all going to crash in the fall, and then there'll be, you know, that potato supply that should have been there won't be there, and that apple supply that should have been there won't be there, and then we'll really be hurting.
I'm just, oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Nicole. I definitely am just hearing where I believe our region, specifically in the inner city, is not necessarily getting the opportunity to have an excess of money opposed to food. We have a lot of chefs right now that are cooking meals for free, but a lot of the food that they get is donated. But a lot of the resources, I think financially, if there is any way that these could be shared, or if there's an opportunity, you know, when you're opening up to, I guess, receiving all of the funds to, I guess, help out the community, is there a target? I'm curious how the money could be acquired, but then we have no one to give it to. I'm just thinking in the inner city, a lot of our difficulty is we can't get access to the funds, but we have thousands of people to feed. And everyone knows the inner city often has a disparity when it comes to access. So for example, I have a cold storage CoolBot right now that's empty because our season, unfortunately, we're not able to harvest until June. But if other regions have food and you have a problem getting it out, I would love to be connected or contacted with folks because we have distribution. I had a conversation with Durkin just about, can we access some of these city vehicles that are grounded right now and just deliver? And they have the opportunity to do it. And it sounds like the city of Seattle is open. So I just wanted to, you know, throw my hand out there to say, Nurturing Roots would love to help, you know, distribute. I'd love to connect folks to the chefs that are preparing free meals. But if the money is already there, why not get the food out to people that need it?
This is Laura Raymond with WSDA. It's really great to hear, although, you know, disheartening to hear about the challenges that this USDA program is creating. And I would just encourage people to share those stories and the experiences and what you are seeing with decision makers that you know. In terms of the money, I think we're talking specifically now about the USDA community, I never can remember what, they keep changing what CAFP stands for. But it's basically U.S. relief funds, coronavirus relief funds flowing through USDA to purchase food, to fund the farm to, the food box program. So the money isn't actually available at the state level. It's being contracted directly from USDA to distributors who were asked to identify the food banks or the community-based organizations they were going to work with. And the language around the program is about supporting local farms. And I think there's even some language about farms who have lost markets due to the closures of the hospitality and food service sector. But of course, those of us working in this realm understand that, as Steve explained so well, those supply chains aren't set up that way. Our producers don't necessarily have fresh product right now. They may not even have the requirements needed to bid for the contract through USDA, which was awarded in a, like a week and a half time period. So there's all kinds of challenges, and I'll just say, in a way, it's an opportunity, as Nils was outlining. And in some ways, it's an opportunity a lot of us have been sort of I guess advocating for over the years. But the way it's happening is not really making very many people happy at all, from what I've heard, regardless of sort of the role that one might be playing in the system. So anyway, I would just say I tried to be able to share information with all of you. I'm kind of trying to track the conversations that are happening at the federal level and even at the state level amongst legislators about future programs that might get funded through future relief and recovery acts. And I think the experiences that you're all having are really important to share so that future programs actually work.
Thank you, Laura. Naima, I'd love to follow up with you behind the scenes to see if we can connect you to some folks and make some kind of synergistic relationships around distribution and funding. I know that it seems to me, what I'm hearing is that seems to be one of the biggest barriers as well, is storage. Is storage, cold storage and dry storage, an issue? I see nodding. Nils is nodding. And
so, Nicole, we have a plan in place. Well, we have a plan to make a plan in place to make use of some empty buildings that are around. One of them is owned by the tribe. We're just kind of trying to call upon the social capital that we've built up over the years for all the people who want food systems to develop, and the Chihuahua Casino near us has given us the green light to park a diesel-powered refrigerated tractor trailer if we need it. So that's we never know how much produce is going to be coming in, but that's our plan in case we can't handle it with our existing refrigeration resources. And I think it seems to be pretty doable. That almost every city has got rentable tractor trailers available. If you have a spot, you can park them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like there's an opportunity to be shifting some of the flush of abundant resources into some of these other areas. I'd love to work with anyone who's open to that to try to make that happen. I know Chris Iberly has been kind of somewhat hosting or convening a communities of practice around food hubs and distribution as well. I'm wondering if there's any connections there. And I'm wondering if anybody is seeing any innovative models with like government or community vehicles being used to transport from, say, even the Skagit or Snohomish county zones, or even Woodinville or Carnation or Snoqualmie areas to get fresh food into the urban areas of Seattle. Is there anyone working with that?
Is
There you
there
go,
a,
Nate. There
is
you go,
there a
Nate. There's your.
system that the truckers use when they, they finish a load and they're back hauling, that they call into to find out who's got a load they can haul? Can we get tied into that and, maybe get somebody that could haul some of these boxes to other parts of the state that aren't overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Patricia, you're right on. That's one of the key. Truckers are in a mess right now because they don't have those back hauls. I mean,
Yeah.
industry's not working, commerce isn't working, and it's one of the major limitations right now. So you're exactly right. No trucker wants to be on the road driving empty, and that whole system is broken down along with everything else right now.
Okay. I don't even have any clue to call to see if we could find out, except maybe we've got a couple of trucking companies here in town. Maybe I should just give them a call and say, how do the drivers find out about backhauling? And yeah, let me work on that.
If I can jump in here, one of the things, a lot of the trucking companies are on e-logs now, which makes it more challenging for them to just like duck out and do something else because they may be short on time for their their logistics is planned pretty tightly, to be honest. One of the things you might do is reach out to David Bobanek at Harvest Against Hunger if we're in need of trucking, because he has an existing relationship with a couple of trucking companies. He, for example, made arrangements for the donation of the trucking for the potatoes that we got out of Moses Lake. And so I would suggest him as a resource. He is, that's part of his role, is to facilitate the logistics around moving donated food.
How do you spell his last name?
B-O-B, I need to write this down. B-O-B-A-N-I-K. If you look on Rotary Harvest Against Hunger's webpage, he's there as a contact.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you, Henry. One thing I did want to share, I'm really grateful for this conversation, but one thing I wanted to share as well, just so you all know, for next week, we will be having we'll have the special guest of Nicole Garden with the WSDA to tell us more about the logistics and scenarios for applying and getting into the Farm to Food Pantry program. And again, Naima, that might be a fantastic opportunity. Let me know if you're unable to view next week and you would like to get connected with her. There might be an opportunity for you to work through your organization and some partner organizations to utilize that program. But I wanted to share as well the following week, which is, I don't even know, what is it, June something. We're going to be having Valerie Seacrest and Nora Frank, both with tribal organizations. Nora is with the, Northwest Portland Indian Health Board, and Valerie Seacrest is with the Native American Agricultural Fund. So we'll be hearing a little bit from them about what's going on there and where there's needs happening. Again, just a real quick plug for that needs assessment tool, our Nat Now. You can go to our website and you'll find a link right there on the homepage if you just go to foodsystems.wsu.edu. It's a needs assessment, food systems related needs assessment that is fillable weekly to help. We're trying to track the ongoing food systems needs throughout the expanse of COVID. And also please share your calendar events and things. If there's any other things in terms of resources, webinars, trainings that you want to post in our chat right now, please be sure you do. But of course, we can stay on the line. Thank you, everyone else, for your participation today. Really, really appreciate it. Continue to stay engaged and involved. And is there anyone else that wanted to throw anything else out there, farm to food pantry related or not? Any great stories or needs or connections you're looking to make?
Nicole, this is Susan Kerr. You wanted me to speak a little bit about the pig situation?
Yeah.
Can you pull up that document?
I can, yeah. And so let me preface this by saying we had a meet group that came out of one of our other meetings. Let me find that. Where is it? And so we got together and we went through some things. Nils had a great story about bringing in pigs, which then led to a publication from the WSD about bringing in swine. Where in the world did it go? Too many things open on my desktop. Hold on a second.
I can talk while you're trying to find it.
Go ahead and talk, Suzanne.
Okay.
Susan, thank you.
Okay, sure. I'm Susan Kerr, formerly with WSU Extension, now with the WSDA. I'm their education and outreach specialist. And I was going to retire and head back east, but COVID has made me stay and be an employee with the WSDA a while longer. We received concerning reports about truckloads of pigs coming in from the Midwest. If you haven't been following this, COVID situation has caused illness in slaughter and processing plant workers. So some of them have been closed, some of them are reduced production, and the commercial pig industry is such that it's very well integrated. Pigs go through different phases, and there's different people sometimes that raise different stages of pigs. So pigs are always coming and going and moving through this production chain. And if there's a holdup at one point or something has to close, pigs have still been born and they're being raised and they're in this production line. And so production is exceeding capacity for slaughter right now. And very, very tragically, some perfectly healthy pigs are being euthanized because there's no place to process them or house them or continue to care for them. Some people have been getting pigs for free or at very low cost, and then moving them to Idaho and Oregon and Washington and all around the country to try to distribute these animals that are a very, very good food source to people and help meet demand. Some of the people doing this are mercenary, doing this for their own gain. Others are trying to address animal welfare issues and food safety and food security issues. So we have all kinds of types of people involved. We've had truckloads here that some of the pigs have arrived sick, some have died. And unfortunately, the way the pigs are being brought in, there hasn't been documentation on all pigs such that if a disease outbreak occurs, we can trace them back and follow through to all the other pigs on the truck. Because it's kind of like the trucks come here and then they're offloaded and maybe one ends up in one place. Maybe 30 go to somebody who's going to be like a broker, and then he or she sells them to 30 different people. So that trace back is a big concern. So is where the pigs are ending up. There is concern down to the family level about food safety. So some people are going to Craigslist and other avenues of sale and buying these pigs. And then they take them home, assuming they're going to have someone process them. As we all know, our small and our limited USDA plants are at capacity. Our small custom and mobile brokers are at capacity. There's no way to absorb these additional pigs. If you want to have something slaughtered, it's months away, usually, if they're even still operating during COVID. So these novice, I would call them novice backyard owners, hoping for inexpensive, high quality protein, are left with this animal that's ready to be killed and eaten, and they have no ability or skills to kill the pig humanely or process it humanely. And so we have animal welfare concerns, certainly human safety concerns. If you got somebody with a gun trying to kill an animal and they're inexperienced with it, that's a concern. And then certainly food safety concerns if people are butchering and processing themselves at home. We call this backyard or garage butchering. So we have a lot of concerns here. And this article that we wrote and put out there, it's to alert people that this is going on. Compliance, the WSDA compliance people are aware of it. They know who the dealers are. They're contacting them to make sure they become educated on the fact that these pigs each pig needs a certificate, each truckload with individual pigs needs a certificate of veterinary inspection, meaning the pigs on board are healthy and show no signs of disease. They need a permit to come into the states, interstate travel, and we need each pig to be identified. And it's one thing if people don't know to do these things out of ignorance, but it's another thing if they're trying to skirt the law. So that's the situation. It's really good idea to try to get some of that protein moved around the country where there's too much in this place and not enough in another place. We just have to do it legally because another thing is the Midwest there's so many pigs there, as you can imagine. Wherever there's a lot of something, that's where there's often have a lot of pigs in Washington. We don't have a lot of the big bad pig diseases. We're really scared these pigs could be bringing in the porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, which we've not had a single case of in this state. Are you still hearing me?
Yeah, you dropped off there for a second, but
Okay.
you're back, I think.
Okay. I was saying there are several bad pig diseases that we don't have in this state because we don't have a big pig population here.
Yeah.
These pigs can be bringing in porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, which is pretty decimating to baby pigs, and we haven't had it in this state. But even worse is a disease called PRRS, which is porcine respiratory and reproductive syndrome. That is just the nightmare of the pig industry. Really hard to get rid of. It causes ticks away at production and health and animal welfare. It gets established in barns and it's very hard to get rid of. And we don't have that yet in this state, and we are really afraid these pigs will bring it in.
Mm. Susan, I'm wondering, I've had some folks even reach out to me personally or through some of our social media messaging that are, say, smaller producers or that do have an established relationship with their on-farm WSDA slaughter person and are trying to seek healthy animals to add to their production system because of the demand. Do you have any suggestions for good practices around that?
They want animals, breeding animals then?
Like some, for instance, are just looking for healthy young steers that are from reputable places. They're wondering right now, because of the influx of animals coming in, if you have any ideas for just kind of best practices for making sure that you are getting a healthy animal.
Yes, that's a good question. I would say that more local they can get them, the better. And so a good contact would be their local veterinarian. Call the veterinarian and say, where would you recommend we get animals? Because they are going to recommend the places they know with the best health practices. And so they're getting steers to grow, that is less of a concern in a lot of ways than getting, say, a brood cow, because she's going to be there for years. And if she comes in with a disease, that's a big deal. But with steers, it's a terminal situation. So maybe they're just going to be raising them, I don't know, 6 months or however. I would say, so go through the veterinarian. They also can look in the Capital Press ag newsletter, but to keep their costs low and the animals' transportation stress low, trying to go as local as possible is best.
Great. Thank you.
I can try to write something up better than that because there are some other concerns about testing.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds like another fact sheet to me.
Because what was that, Twin View Ranch, is that what it was in Jefferson County? the WSU Ranch there, got a donation of animals, and unfortunately they look good, but they had a bad disease, so they had to go. And now farm has to rest for a while before they can start again with cattle.
Exactly.
It's a really good idea to people to think about the diseases an animal can bring in. When you buy an animal, you're buying also its bacteria, its viruses, and its parasites. And some of them can set up shop on your property for years to come.
Another resource I wanted to share real quick as well, that's just along with this meat conversation, is a list that I found. It's not going to give me. Oh, it's not going to give me as an option to share it. Oh, well, that's okay. I will share it in the chat. But last week we had talked about finding processors. And this is something I'm looking to get up in a more usable format. Basically, right now there's a pretty lengthy list of WSDA processors in the state. And so I have worked my way through it to color code it so that you can quickly see who are mobile slaughter units versus what are brick and mortar wrap and pack processing plants versus what are more retail facing kind of deli or butcher services. So I am hoping to make this more available through our COVID Hub website and through our WA Meetup networks, and just also making sure that everyone's aware of the lists and resources that are on the WSDA website.
One other thing I forgot to say about the pigs, Susan again, is that these pigs are coming from commercial production. These genetics are incredibly sophisticated. These pigs are what's called a composite breed. They're a little of this, a little of that have been selected for, and the genetics developed for indoor production on extremely sophisticated diets at different stages of life. That's what they're designed to do well for. And if they're coming to backyard farms, many of those people are just going to turn the pigs loose to be out on quote unquote pasture, and then give them fruits and vegetables or bakery waste or whatever. And those pigs are not going to do well. They are not going to be a quality product. They're not quote unquote designed for that situation. Other pigs are. And we always have to match the type of animal and what we expect of it with the environment we provide. If nothing else, they'll get sunburned because they're usually pink pigs. So if you come in contact, any of you with individual backyard family people that are looking for pigs, send them my way. I'm happy to talk to them about what to look for, where to get those healthy animals, and not to get stuck with sick pigs or pigs they're not going to be happy with. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. Henry Wong, are you still there? Did you have something to share?
Yeah. So updates on the technical assistance side. So this is Henry Wong with Business Impact Northwest. But we do have, next week we have a PPP loan forgiveness webinar. So if you have anyone that you know that has received a PPP loan and they're starting to have questions on the forgiveness aspect and how that application process looks, then we'll have a webinar, and I'm going to post that link in the chat. And then the second thing I wanted to mention is we are getting ready to roll out a farmer e-commerce pilot program. So working with WSDA. So Laura, Raymond, feel free to jump in if I miss anything, but we're basically calling it the Ready to Sell Farmer e-commerce pilot. So our goal is to try to help 10 to 15 historically disadvantaged farmers get their operations ready to sell online. So offering some targeted technical assistance and a 1-year subscription to a farm-specific software program. So one of the programs that helps with the e-commerce piece and the inventory management aspect. So really trying to help bridge that technology gap especially for businesses that are having to make that pivot now. So, but that should be rolling out soon. We brought on someone to help support that program as well. And then Dominique is taking the lead on that. She's on the call today, but I'll put her email in the chat as well. And then I'll also put my email if you have any questions. And I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Laura, but we're working with Laura Raymond at the WSDA on that program.
Thanks, Henry. Wondering if Laura had to jump off. Oh no, she's there. Laura, did you have anything to add on that? That's fantastic. I was just wondering, does that also include website development? Like if the farmer does not currently have a website?
Yeah, so that would be, yeah, that would include that as well. So and we have some additional resources that could supplement that piece, even if it, you know, if it's something that's needed to get them to that level. But yeah, it's kind of all exactly that plus a little bit of more.
Yeah, and then with the e-commerce platforms as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And have you already selected the farms, or do you have any sort of application process, or how?
Those details we're working out in the next few days or early next week. So so feel free to email either myself or Dominique, and we can get you more information.
Excellent. Anyone else, please feel free to share. Are there any questions or needs out there that have come up at all, or any other announcements that folks would like to make before we wrap up?
Might I chime in here? This is Eric.
Please feel free.
I'm Eric Sorensen. I'm a cottage baker, Clumsy Crow Baking in Pullman, and I've started baking for 2 food pantries, one in Palouse and one in Albion. I don't know if you know, Whitman County, the Palouse in general is a food desert. We grow the billions of bushels of wheat, but hardly any of it gets to people here. So I'm, for now, donating bread to these food pantries. I'll have 2 big bakes this coming week. And I've asked I have a mailing list that I call the Bread Club. It's about 150 people who buy my bread regularly. And I've asked them once a month to kick in towards the food pantry effort. I'm calling it Palouse Neighbor Loaves, modeled after a Midwest effort in which customers will buy bread for people in food pantries, and bakers will bake the loaves using 50% or more local flour, which is what I do anyway. So that my business model for now, such as it is to ask customers to chip in $4 a loaf. I usually charge about $6 to $8 a loaf, but this is a reduced rate, towards the food pantries. And I'm gonna just do that for a while and hope that it's sustainable. But if anybody has ideas, call or write, and we'll take it from here.
Thanks, Eric. Abba, I knew you got some updates, grain-related updates.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Eric, for all your work also on the Neighbor Loaves program. I'm gonna post a link to this in the chat. I know that I've talked about this before on the call. A couple of different bakeries across Washington have already signed on to this. One out here on the Olympic Peninsula is working with a local bakery to provide neighbor loaves through the online farmers market, and is interested in doing a distribution model similar to that, but the food banks and food pantries are overrun. So they're figuring out some different ways to distribute different loaves to people in need. And I just posted the Neighbor Loaves program in the chat if you want to check out more about that model. Really excited to see it taking off, and also as a potential model for other areas, potentially farmer CSA or neighbor CSAs. So you could purchase a CSA for your neighbor. And if anybody wants more info on that, you can contact me or contact Alyssa, who's the coordinator for that nationally through the Artisan Grains Collaborative based in the Midwest. One of the ongoing issues that I'm just wondering if anybody still on the call has any experience with or any resources to point towards. Is, you know, we're all kind of in this time where there's a lot of cancellations happening, and there's a lot of confusion and bottlenecking and labor issues in terms of getting refunds for events and moving through different contracts that have already been set up with different agencies for events that are now going to be canceled. So I don't know if anybody's had success with that generally. It's something that we're working on as, you know, the food systems program and the food systems innovation events in general. And if anybody wants to chat about that, I'm happy to just be available to chat in an ongoing way about events and event strategy and event support as we move through this time. But that's definitely something that's on the top of my radar of how do we get these folks to give us our refunds if they can't afford to, or, you know, what are the next steps there? And I know that's something that WSU is working on a larger level too, but if anybody has any comments or specifics around that they want to share, I'd be curious to hear about that. For example, I know Brown Paper Tickets is a site that's not being able to issue refunds in a timely manner right now, and it's causing a lot of confusion and hold up in some of the programming and how to move forward with new budgets based on what we have available now. Not sure if anybody else has been dealing with that specific problem. The other aspect, and again, I'm happy to just be available to folks to kind of brainstorm for different events. In terms of grains, right now we're looking at the next kind of phase of the Cascadia Grains Conference heading into January and what that could look like in the coming year, and trying to think about some strategic ways, if we are able to reopen, to have different regional events that have 50 people or less that maybe could contribute towards a larger framework that's a collaborative event. The other event that we're working on right now is the International Quinoa Research Symposium, which I've talked about on the call before. Registration is now live. It's an online free event that is focusing world attention on quinoa and the sustainable use, breeding and development of that worldwide. It's free, it's an interactive online platform. We're still researching what kind of platforms are going to be the most helpful for us. We're considering Microsoft Teams and Slack. I've got a call today with a couple other people who are trying to figure this whole online event thing out. And so if you want to join that conversation, I'm pretty sure we're just going to be kind of touching base weekly to see how things are going. And just wanted to put a plug in that if you're interested in the Quinoa Symposium or know anyone who is, the registration is now online and free. We are also going to be opening it, offering this programming in both English and Spanish. And so if you have any questions about that or want any more information about the Quinoa Symposium or events in general, I'll post my email address in the chat box, and we can talk later. It sounds like a couple people have to sign off, so I think I'll just close there.
Awesome. Thank you, Abba. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us today for the Hub call. We had a lot of fantastic things to share. Don't forget that next week we will be hosting the WSDA Farm to Food Pantry Program Manager Nicole Garden. She'll give us more logistical information about that program and how to connect with it. Yeah, and everyone be well. Thank you very much for being here.